Hi guys, today I wanted to talk about one of my toughest projects I have worked so far, and I thought it would be interesting to share the whole process. Well, it took me nearly a month to complete it. It's an Italian version of the French illustrated magazine La Revue Dessinée. You are actually the first to see the printed version because it will be in shops during the first week of December. And as you can see, it's not a typical magazine cover because it has end papers, which is usually typical for books, and it's way wider than its normal magazine cover, and I really wanted to play with this format. So as you can see here, there is another character hidden, and we have the sequence of this concert. So we see the public here with the shadow of this singer with a microphone. And now I will tell you all the details and show you the sketches, and I'll tell you how I was working on it. That was pretty challenging for me. So let's dive in. When I was in Paris, I got contacted by the editor and art director of this magazine, Massimo Colella, and he asked me to create this cover. And honestly, I was thrilled and honored because I knew this magazine very well, and I also knew that they invite super cool artists, and the topics they cover in the comics are real and controversial, and both the text and the illustrations are top quality. And it was such a pressure to me, to be honest, and I really wanted to create something special because I have so much respect for this magazine. And Massimo said that they really like my characters, especially musicians. So he proposed that I draw a concert. And as they often talk about feminism and women's rights, I thought it would be cool to draw a women's punk band on the cover, you know, a rebellious one, and show the audience enjoying the concert on the end papers. But you can ask me a punk group, but here we don't see a punk band, we see nuns. So I will tell you how we arrived to this. So I got this idea about the girls punk group. I did a huge research, and I collected a bunch of photos of rock musicians and punk musicians. Some of them had really cool postures and lots of energy, and I used these pictures as an inspiration to make a bunch of sketches. So here you can see that I was trying to capture this vibes and the energy and the movements. So that was very fun, and I always spent quite some time to get this energy. And the hardest part was putting them all together, because even though some of the sketches were good, they didn't necessarily work well together. So that was pretty tough. And finally, I came up with this version, which I think is pretty balanced. Actually, I made two versions, one with a dark background and another with a light one. And personally, I liked the dark one better, but I sent both to the client because you never know. And the client loved it. They said that everyone was into this idea and the composition and the colors. So they thought everything was cool, and they gave me the green light. And I was pretty calm and pleased with the sketches I did. But there is always but. The next day, he wrote me another letter, and he said, you know, I was thinking all night, and I have some doubts regarding the cover. What if people mistake us for a music magazine? Maybe we should make it more more provocative and feature nuns instead of girls. And I was so frustrated. I was completely devastated. I was like, what? Nuns? Seriously? And it was a shock because once the client approves your work, they don't really ask for a complete change afterwards. I was so frustrated. I couldn't do anything for the whole day. Plus, in today's world, everyone's so easily offended, so I didn't really want to take all the risks. But then he called me and he explained his idea. So he wanted to talk about modernization of the Catholic Church. And that's why he proposed this idea. It's not that he just wanted to provoke people and that's all. And he also asked me to draw a congregation at the end papers. So the congregation at church who will listen into the concert. But I didn't like this idea, and I told him that I prefer to leave the original version because from my point of view, the church should speak to every person, and that's why it should be modernized. And at the end, he agreed with me, and he liked this idea with the microphone that the singer let people talk. So I also think that it's quite interesting, this idea. Another thing I wanted to tell you is that when a client asks me to make a big change, I usually ask myself if I can make the image stronger. And if I can, I agree. I don't argue, and I just dive into it completely. If not, I try to fight for my idea. But in this case, I was so curious if I can do this in the first place, because I've never done anything so provocative so far. And yes, it was definitely a challenge, but it was pretty interesting goal to achieve. But the hardest part was that I had to redraw everything. And I told him, Massimo, do you actually realize that I can't just replace these girls with nuns? Because they have completely different silhouettes. And nuns wear black cassocks, so they won't work on the dark background, and the movements won't work either. So I had to start my research all over again. And it turns out that nuns do play in bands, but the pictures that I found were kind of boring. They looked too stiff. So what I did was that I took the real musicians and I imagined them wearing cassocks, and I replaced them with nuns. That was the funny part. So here you can see the new sketches that I did. I like this one. That was a very fun one. Yeah. This one, I loved how it came out with a graphite, and I tried to paint it, but it didn't make it to the final piece, although I like the movement of this one. Yeah, some of them are so crazy, yeah. Some, like this one, for example, this one is also interesting. So, as you can see, I made tons of new stuff. And yeah, what's next? So here you can see what references I chose for those ladies. Yeah, that was like my favorite part, and it was pretty fun. You know that I always use references because I think that it's too hard to make the character believable and compelling without a real reference. So yeah, I always make lots of sketches. And here I tried to put them all together, and initially I was trying the pink background to create the contrast between the green logo, which I don't actually like. I don't like the color of this logo because it's pretty difficult. And I was working with a complementary color. So in the final version, I used the violet background to make it work with the green logo. But here with the pink background, it didn't work from my point of view. And finally, I came up with this version that everyone was happy with. But as you can see, it took me quite some time to arrive here, and it looks completely different from the first sketch with the punk girls. So what's next? Well, for magazine illustrations, I usually paint part of work on paper and then I combine them digitally because it takes too much time to draw all the characters perfectly in one piece. Yeah, actually I can do this, but this will take me weeks. So I actually try to do this in 3-4 days. So I usually choose one character and I make very quick versions using tempera and gouache. And here I didn't like this figure, although I think that the background was pretty fun. And I chose this one, and here, as you can see, I added lots of contrast. So this one is much darker and white color is brighter, and I added some details. So here I elaborated it a lot. As for this one, with this one I was more fortunate, so it came out. So the first version, I was pretty happy with it, and at the end of this video I will show you the process of this drawing, these characters. And here, although this one works probably better, I like the silhouette of this one, this figure was wider than it should be, so I didn't manage to place it here in the cover. So I chose this one, and it's almost the same. Here I just added the shadow here, and for some reason I changed these boots. I really don't know why, and I like this detail. So I will show you the process of this one. And as for this character, one second, this is the drummer. I don't find it. Actually, I was not happy with this one, and I made it digitally. So this one is the only figure that I did almost completely digitally. And as for the drummer, here is the drummer. So when I started, my idea was to make a very dark background and very light drums. But while I was painting it, I realized that it didn't actually work. So I came up with this version, and I think that the posture here is way more natural than here. And I decided to take this one, and here I just made this part darker to make it pop up, and I added a bit of stars here and added a couple of details. So I didn't change it a lot here. As for the that's it. That's the version of this one, but I didn't like it at all. So I tried a pink guitar here, but I didn't like it. I think it didn't work well, so I made it digitally. And as for end papers, my initial plan was to make this dark background, and I wanted to place the text here in this part. But after I scanned it, I realized that it didn't work for some reason. You know, sometimes this happens, that the things that work on paper not necessarily work digitally when you see it scanned. And I realized that it's better to zoom in, to crop this image, and to draw this huge shadow and to place the text here in this part. And I think that this cropped version works better. I prefer it like this because we don't see where it ends, and it gives you more the feeling of the real concert. That's my perception. And here, as you can see, I was working with the rhythm of white. And here I added lots of shadows because I felt that there was a lack of depth. So I added very dark shadows. So here it is. I hope that it was interesting. Well, I'm going to show you the process of this one. And I hope that it was interesting, and please let me know your thoughts. I'm always very curious to read your comments. Please tell me what you think about this work, and what version do you prefer, with punk girls or with nuns. I'm super curious. And additionally, if you live in France or in Italy, I will leave the links for this magazine so you can subscribe. And I also wanted to thank those of you who enrolled to my course in Spain, in Seville. I'm preparing lots of fun and exciting exercises, so I'm sure that we will have a great time together. So thank you very much, and until next time.